Hello everyone and welcome to the explanation of Unit 4 Worksheet E. This is the last worksheet in Unit 4, and then there's Worksheet F, which is the review, and then we will have the test after this. Now, this is the longest unit that we'll have before the end of the year. Unit 5, which is coming up, is just going to be 2 worksheets and a review, so an A, B, and a C. And then, we're just going to have our test after that, and then we'll be done. Now, I did get a couple questions asking about logistics of turning stuff in. So the way it's going to work is I just need all of your worksheets for Unit 4, which should be A, B, C, D, and E. I don't need to see the review, Worksheet F. I need those submitted with, you could just take pictures with your phone and then email that to me, and I'll put that in. And then I need to see worksheets A and B for Unit 5. So that's going to be all the homework for the rest of the year. So just submit those to me whenever you can. And I need all of those by May 8th, because that's the last day of the class. So please get those into me before then. Now, in terms of the tests, if you were the B-Day class and you didn't take Unit 6, that is on Schoology. So go ahead and print that out if you have a printer, or just take it off the screen and work it all out, and then just send me a picture of all your work and your answers, and I'll grade that and I'll put those in. And then the Unit 4 exam we are going to have coming up, I looked at a couple ways of administering that. One was on Google Forms, another was on these pay websites and stuff like that. I think what I'm just going to do is I'm going to put it up on the web, or on Schoology, and then have you guys just work it out and then send me pictures of your work, because it's not very good for a multiple choice question or type of test, because there's just so many different ways to do them, and you kind of have to demonstrate that things are identities and stuff like that. So I will let you know as we get closer to that what to do exactly, but I think I'm just going to put it up on Schoology sometime next week after the review. Now, I have put the answer key to the review up on Schoology already, so if you are all caught up and you want to work on that, I think that's a great idea. I worked out everything, and I'll talk a bit about that at the end of this video. If you are taking this for Overland credit only, like I said, you don't have to do anything in terms of, you really don't have to do anything if you like your grade. But if you want to improve your grade, everything that you do from here on out is just going to improve it. So you could, if you have a C, you can bump it all the way up to an A probably. So there's that. If you are taking it for college credit, you will need to do everything in order to earn that college credit. But, it's not a lot of stuff left. And hopefully it's manageable with your other classes going on as well. So please let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to email me anytime, okay? So first thing I wanted to do was talk about Worksheet D. Someone asked about these problems, 7 through 12, and it was rough because we hadn't talked about some of these identities quite yet, but they were on your sheet, and hopefully, you wrote them all down when you did it. So looking at this, let's look at number 7 from Worksheet D real quick. It says 2 sine of 13 cosine of 13. So what we do is we look at our sheet, and you find that in the sum to product identities, over there on the right side we have all those 2's in front, and that kind of matches what we have. There is a fraction on for each of the trig functions there, so ours is already reduced to 13s. So what I did was I realized that I had sine times cosine, so I realized it was going to be that first one. And so I know it's going to be something that kind of looks like this, and all I have to do is figure out what x and y are. Well, x and y are basically 2 numbers that add up, and then when you cut them in half, you get 13. So I know up top I'm supposed to get 26. So x can really be just any 2 numbers that add up to 26. Anything, really. So I picked 12 and 14. You could do, like I said, anything. You could do 1 and 25. You could do, 2 and 24, whatever you want to. And if you do that, those two numbers are going to get plugged into the left side, and you're going to be left with just sine of whatever number you like plus sine of the other number you like. And as long as those add up to 26, you got it right. So kind of an ambiguous question, but definitely doable. So don't be bogged down on difficult ones like that. Okay, so let's look at worksheet E real quick. Once again, there's a bunch of examples at the beginning of the worksheet, and I'm going to work through those. And hopefully that will help you when you get to your part of it. So with example 1A, we are going to be using all the product to sum and sum to product formulas. So if you haven't copied these down yet, please do so, and you'll have everything you need to do this worksheet. So looking at example 1A, we have sine of 12 degrees times cosine of 9 degrees. Well, for this, we're going to go onto our product to sum worksheet, or identities, and we're going to find the one that has sine, then cosine. So the very top one has sine of A times cosine of B. Our A and B in this case are going to be 12 and 9. So I just plug in the 12 and 9 where all the A's and B's are, and you end up with this. Now, once we have that, all we have to do is simplify this a little bit. 12 plus 9 is 21. 12 minus 9 is 3. So we get to this step. Now, it doesn't look pretty, but this is where we leave it because there's nothing to simplify. There is no sine of 21 on our unit circle. There is no sine of 3. We could use a calculator and get some awful decimals, but this is a better answer because we're not rounding, we're not chopping anything off. So this is the best way to write this answer, okay? All right, let's look at example 1B. Now this one is in radians, so you're going to have to do a bit of fraction work, but it's not too hard. This one is sine and sine, so I go to my identities and I look at the sine and sine one. So I'm going to use this one right here. I plug in pi divided by 12 and pi divided by 8, and this is what you end up with. Now to subtract and add those fractions, you do have to have a common denominator, so I turn them both into 24s. Here's my work right here. And then, so what happens is you have 2 pi and 3 pi on top. When you subtract those, you're going to get a negative single pi on the first one, and then when you add them up, you get 5 pi on the second one. 5 pi over 24 and negative pi over 24 are not on the unit circle, so we leave this just like this, so not too hard. All right, so let's look at example 2. These ones are going to work out to things that are going to be on the unit circle, but the beginning of them is exactly what we were just doing, okay? So we have cosine times sine, so we're going to go onto our sheet, find cosine times sine. The A and B in this case are going to be 67.5 and 112.5. So plug all that stuff in, you end up with this. I ran out of room on mine, so that's what I had to go down to the second line. So on the right side, we're just going to add them up and then subtract them. So you're going to end up with half times sine of 180 minus sine of negative 45. Don't be confused by sine of negative 45. That's going to be the same thing as sine of positive 315. So look those up on a chart, and you end up with 1/2 times the quantity 0 minus a negative square root of 2 over 2. The minuses turn into plus signs. So then you just have a 1/2 times square root of 2 divided by 2. The 2's multiply, and you get a 4 on bottom. So that's what we have for that one. Okay. Next one, it's pretty much the same thing. We have sine times cosine. Find that on your sheets. Plug in the A and B, so the 52.5 and the 7.5. You end up with this. When you add those, you get 60. When you subtract them, you get 45. So we're here. Now, all these values are going to be on the unit circle, so we look those up, and we end up with this, 1/2 of the quantity square root of 3 over 2 plus square root of 2 over 2. Now, those have a common denominator, so you can add those, and you end up with that. So now just multiply that fraction out front times fraction inside the parentheses, and you end up with this. So pretty straightforward. You're just adding the additional step of using the unit circle, so not really that hard. All right, let's look at example 3. So now we're going to be going with the sum to product identity. So these are the ones on the other side. So we have sine plus sine. So we go over here, we find sine plus sine, and it gives us all that stuff on the right. So we just plug in our x's and y's, and we end up with this. So if you do all that, you're going to get 2 times sine of 7, and I got that from 8 plus 6 is 14. 14 cut in half is 7. Then cosine of 8 minus 6, well, 8 minus 6 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So we stop right here because there's really nothing left to do. Okay. Next one, they give it to us in radians, so it's going to be the same thing. We have cosine minus cosine, so we go in our sheet. Cosine minus cosine is this. So plug those into here. Now, this has the added difficulty of dealing with the fractions, so I'm going to turn those denominators and all those into 40s. So I ended up with this. Now, let me show you exactly how I got that. Pi over 5 times 8s, pi over 8 times 5s. You end up with 8 pi over 40 plus 5 pi over 40. Well, that's 13 pi's over 40. And that's how I got that first part. Now, 13 pi over 40 divided by 2, because remember, it's being cut in half. We copy dot flip, and so we're going to double the bottom, so you get 13 pi over 80. And that's how I got the 13 pi over 80 in the first set of parentheses. Second set of parentheses is exactly the same, but you subtract them, you end up with a similar answer. So that is how I got those from the fractions. Now, those values are not on the unit circle, so you don't have to go any further than this. All right, so let's look at example 3C. These ones have some variables in them. Doesn't really change anything. You're just going to have some t's along for the ride. So we have sine minus sine. That's going to look like this. So we plug in those values for x and y. You end up with cosine, or 2 times cosine of 5t. And the way I got that was 6t plus 4t is 10t. Cut that in half, you get a 5t. And then 6t minus 4t is 2t. 2t divided by 2 gives us t. Okay, so example 4. Similar thing. We're just gonna, these ones are actually gonna give us values because they're gonna give us stuff that's on the unit circle. So we have cosine plus cosine. Go to our sheet. Here's our x's and here's our y's. So we replace all those, and this is what you get. Add up the tops, and on the left one, you get 180. Cut that in half, you get 90. On the other one, you subtract them, and you end up getting 90. Cut that in half, you get 45. So we have 2 times cosine of 90 times cosine of 45, and this is where we end. Now, cosine of 90 and cosine of 45 are on the unit circle, so we look those up. And cosine of 90 is 0. Cosine of 45 is square root of 2 over 2. Since all of those are multiplying, 0 kind of cancels everything out, and the final answer there is just 0. All right, example 4b. They give us 105 and 15. We have sine plus sine, so we find sine plus sine are our sum to product identities. We plug in that x and that y into there, and we end up with this. 105 plus 15 is 120. Cut that in half, you get a 60. And then 105 minus 15 is 90. Cut that in half, you get a 2. All of that's going to be on the unit circle, so we look up sine of 60 and the cosine of 45, and we end up with these. Multiply the tops, multiply the bottoms. Some stuff, the 2's will cancel out, but I don't know, it's not a big deal. We end up with the square root of 6 divided by 2, and that is our final answer. We don't have to do anything beyond that. Okay, so that is it for the examples. This worksheet's pretty straightforward. You're just kind of plugging stuff in and then simplifying a little bit if you can. Half of these you really couldn't do much, but the other half you could. So looking at your trig identity, well, the rest of this worksheet, the first 6 is exactly what I was just doing. You won't have to simplify much beyond plugging these in. So these are pretty straightforward. For numbers 7 through 8, these are going to work out to things that are in the unit circle, so be very, very mindful, especially in number 8, that you reduce those fractions well. Number 9 through 14, these are just the opposite ones. So the sum to product, once again, these probably won't work out to be things on the unit circle, so you're just going to do them until you can't anymore. And then last but not least, these ones are going to work out to be numbers on the unit circle, so you'll look up some values and they'll go just a bit further than the previous 6 problems. Okay, that is it for this worksheet. Now, looking at the schedule for the rest of the year, this is what I have. I'm creating this video right now on the 8th, so it's Wednesday, so I'm a day ahead really, but this will be posted today, and then next week I'm gonna. Well, the review is already up. I'll make a. I don't know if I need to make a video for the review or not because I worked out all the problems already. They're pretty straightforward. I don't know. One thing to think about with the review as well. The review problems are really, really similar to the exam problems. Some of the worksheets had some super difficult problems. So I say this a lot, but if you're doing the review and you're like, wow, this isn't that hard, you're going to destroy the test. If you're doing some of these worksheets and you're like, oh my God, I don't know how to do that, I wouldn't stress too bad. If you're doing the review and you get it, you'll be fine. I will post the exam for Unit 4 next week. I'll probably do it on Wednesday, just like it says on the schedule, just so people can get it caught up on homework. If you could submit to me your homework by the, we'll say the 16th for Unit 4, that would be perfect. I'll put all that in the grade book and get you guys all caught up. I'll let you know where you stand in terms of Overland versus CCA. If your grade's gone up for Overland, I'll let you know all that. But try and get me all of your homework for Unit 4 by the 16th of this month. And once again, that's just A through E. I don't need CF. Okay? On the review, real quick, like I said, I posted it up. The only thing that I really need to tell you is on number 10, I don't know if I changed this before I printed this for you, so I don't know what yours looks like. But I know for number 10, I goofed last year, and I had sine plus cosine. You need to change that second one to a sine of 45 degrees. So if that hasn't been changed on your review, please do so. But other than that, the review should be pretty straightforward and pretty good. If you guys have any questions at all, want me to work out any problems before or in a video or something, I'll be happy to. Or if it's like an individual thing and you need me to just explain something to you a bit better, feel free to email me. I'm here for you. I have been getting back to people within 24 hours for sure, but usually a lot less than that. So like I said, contact me if you need to. If not, get your homework done and submit it to me by the 16th. All right? Have a wonderful afternoon, and wash your hands. Bye.